All right, welcome. Let's jump in. This is the next series in our Getting Started webinar series, or I guess the next set of videos on the Maps SDK for iOS. So I'm your host, Chris Wong, Senior Developer Evangelist here at Mapbox. And I'm joined today by Patrick Leonard, who's an iOS engineer on our Maps team. So you're already probably familiar with Mapbox, but if you're not, make sure you go check out our website and know that we do a whole lot more than just map rendering and all the base maps and beautiful rendering of spatial data. We have a full suite of location-based services and APIs, lots of tools, including data sets, real-time navigation, traffic, things like that. So go ahead and check out what we've got to offer on mapbox.com. So without further ado, this is the next series in this Getting Started webinar series will be about the Maps SDK for iOS. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Leonard, who is an iOS engineer on our Maps SDK team, and he'll take it from here. Take it away, Patrick.
Hi, all. Welcome. My name is Patrick Leonard. I'm an iOS engineer here at Mapbox, based in the Washington, D.C. area. I've been with Mapbox for about 3 years. If you have any questions while we're walking through this presentation, please do enter them into the chat. Chris will be happy to field them, but I'd love to hear if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, or if you have any questions about implementation or otherwise. Today, we're going to go over a few different items. So we're going to start with a basic web map in the iOS SDK. So just loading with a few lines of code and kind of pulling in the world of Mapbox data into your application. From there, we're going to play with some of the initial setting options, so changing the map camera and also adding some annotations and otherwise manipulating those annotations to display different pieces of information. Lastly, we're going to explore the docs, so you can learn where you can learn more and how you can start to integrate the Mapbox Maps SDK into your application. With that, I'm going to dive right into the code here. So I'll just take a moment to share screen. Great. Can everyone see my screen?
I think you're looking good.
Great. All right. So just to get started, this tutorial assumes that you've already installed the Maps SDK in your application. If you haven't done that already, it's a few steps located on our website. So it's in this Maps SDK for iOS docs. And then if you either hit installation or install here, you can learn how to configure your Mapbox credentials and then install install the SDK into your application. I use Swift package manager to install this, but you can also use CocoaPods or direct download if that works better for you. All right. So now you can jump into Xcode here. So I've just started with a pretty empty project, just a completely blank page, and we'll go from there. If you were incorporating the Maps SDK into an existing project, it'll be pretty similar, but you might have some configuration options that are particular to you. All right, so the first thing we need to do is just import the Mapbox SDK into the project. So you'll do that similar to how you import UIKit or any other framework, just with an import statement up here, and then Mapbox Maps. Usually once I do that, I like to just check and make sure that everything is still working clean and you can run the sample there and there were no installation issues. So just do a quick build here, have pop up with our simulator. It is blank now, which is pretty boring, but at least no errors and everything seems to be looking good. Next, we're going to start pulling in a map view. And what the map view is really kind of the centerpiece of the Maps application. It's how you'll access the map, change the map style, manipulate the camera, maybe add some of your own data. So whenever you need to be doing something with the map, you want to work through the map view. So here, we're just going to add it right to your view controller class. So it'll be internal car map view. And then it'll be of type map view. Now, in order to start with the map view, you want to configure a few different options. So the primary one is a resource option of an access token. And what the access token does is allows you to access Mapbox resources. So you can load Mapbox styles or some of the data that's hosted by Mapbox. So to do that, you'll just add a resource option collection. So it'll be let my resource options. Go to resource options. And for now, you'll just be using your access token. And to get an access token, you can log into your Mapbox account online and then pull your access token from this page. So there'll be account.mapbox.com/access-tokens. You can create a new token if you'd like to. I like to create one for each project that I do. We also have a default option you can use, whatever is easier for you. The benefit of creating new tokens is you get better statistics for who's using your application. So you'll go ahead and copy this one and then paste it right in here as a string. Great. Next, you're going to configure some map initialization options. And these initialization options configure the state of the map right at load time. So for now, we'll just configure the resources, but eventually we're going to add more to our map initiation options. So it'll be map, my map init options is equal to map init options. And we're just going to pass the resource options we just created there. Great. And now it's time to initiate our map view. So we'll start with map view, create a new map view. I'm going to start with creating bounds. For this example, we're going to do the bounds of the entire space area of the screen. So it'll just be view.bounds. In your application, you may want to have a smaller view and maybe just a portion of your screen. All those can be configured by you. And then you'll pass in the init options you have here. Great. Then lastly, we're just going to add the new map view we created to your existing view. So the view and then the map view. And now we're ready to run it. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild. Let's see. Oh, that would be add subview, not add view. Great. And as you can see here, we've loaded a map pretty quickly. So with just a few lines of code, we've pulled in a Mapbox map. So with this map, you can see most of the world here. So we'll zoom out. You get a Mercator projection of the world with a default Mapbox map style. So this is a base use case. So there's like some great collection of styling here just to get started. So as you can see, we have both landforms, also some city data. If we zoom in, say to DC, you can start to see more data showing up on the map as you get closer, that detail really filling in as the user pans around and zooms into certain areas. If you keep going, you'll see even more data pulled in. And then you can manipulate this map just like you would kind of expect with your standard map experience. So you can do gestures. So here you can imitate the user panning around, zooming in and out with this 2-finger touches. If you do taps, you can see that it automatically zooms in. So here, but just a few lines of code, we've pulled in the Maps SDK and given you this full map power of all sorts of data that is coming in from Mapbox. Next, let's go ahead and change the default style. So this, as I mentioned before, is Mapbox Streets, which is a good style to get started with. It has a lot of the data you'd expect a map to have. So it has coastlines, it has these administrative areas, administrative boundaries, it has city data, but you may be interested in, say, a satellite map. So let's try pulling that one in. A good place to start, you'll have to create new map initialization options. So let's see. Here, we're going to just go into my map init options, and then we're going to add a new one. So we'll add a style URL. And here you can pull in a few different default options for Mapbox, or you can create your own style and add that in. For now, we're just going to start with pulling in the satellite one. So it'll just be style URI, UR : dot, and satellite. Great, and we're going to reload the map. Great, and now, as you can see, instead of having that kind of navigation or street view, you have this satellite imagery map also provided by Mapbox. So you can see the desert area, you can see dense forests in this area, you can see the oceans. And this satellite data is all assembled by Mapbox from a couple different providers, stitched together and created into this world map where you can zoom in and see some pretty rich detail up to a pretty low zoom level. Similarly, you can do all of the same interactions you had before with the other base map, but you just get a different level of imagery for different tiles that are loaded. Okay. If there are any questions as we're going along, please do enter them into the chat. Chris is happy to jump in and share. I would love to know what you're thinking and if we can answer anything as we go. In addition to satellite, we have a few different kind of default styles you may be interested in. So another good one to try out is the light style, which is great for data visualization use cases in particular. And so this is a pretty stripped down map, as you'll see, that has just kind of a light color palette and not as much visual information as some of the other ones, which is really great if, say, you wanted to put, say, election results up. It has just the outlines there for you, and you can kind of manipulate it as you go. So a lot of great different customization options available, all available just through this changing out the style URI. Okay. Next, we're going to change the camera options. And what the camera is the angle at which you're viewing the map and the zoom level at which you're looking at the map. So before we get started, I'll just do a quick explainer of zoom levels. So this, if you pull all the way out, you get to zoom 0, which gives you most of the world all in one shot. So there's, you get a much higher level of geometry, but a much lower level of detail. Each step, so like that would be a zoom step, gets you a little bit closer. You get a little bit smaller of a geographic area and more data for that particular area. And so this would be about zoom level 1. And then as you zoom in, you get higher and higher. And eventually you'll, if I click down, you'll get to street level, and that'll be about zoom 22. So you can really get a lot of different information all pulled into one. Great. So
we got a quick, hey Patrick, we got a quick question.
Yeah.
So Dimitri, who's watching the webinar, asks, is there a way to move the scale bar to the bottom? So I see there's like a default scale bar and a compass that came with this, along with on the bottom we've got the Mapbox logo and like an info panel. So are these things, can we position these where we want them?
Yes. So these are known as ornaments, these 4 items here. So we have the scale bar ornament, we have the compass ornament, we have the Mapbox logo here, and then also this info option, which gives you information about the data sources you have. And those can be moved around the map. So if you wanted to, say, switch the Mapbox logo to put it up here and put the scale bar down here, you can do that as well. You can also hide them. So as you'll see, this ornament only shows up if you don't have that full north tilt. So you can do a similar logic for the scale bar. So say you only wanted to show the scale bar at very high zoom levels when a user may be at street level, then you can do that. So you can move them around, you can stack them pretty close to each other. You can really kind of customize them to whatever your use case looks like. If you don't want this particular compass image, you can change that out. if you wanted to have different colors for the scale bar, you could do that. So yes, you can move all of these kind of ornaments to suit your individual use case. Great question. Great. Continuing here, so let's go back to the camera options. So pretty similar to the resource options, we'll just create a new set of options here. So we'll go with let my camera options. I'm going to start with center. So what center is where the map loads at the center point. So you'll pass a location coordinate with latitude, longitude. I'm in Washington, D.C., so I'm going to start with the coordinates for Washington, D.C. You can choose any set of coordinates you like to start the map at. And then I'm also going to start with a zoom level that is a little bit closer to street level. So I'm going to start with zoom 16 here. And then lastly, I'm going to switch the pitch of the map, which will give you a different perspective. So before we've had a pitch of 0, which is looking straight down on the map. And now I'm going to put it to pitch 45, which will give you kind of an angled view of the map, which will be a little bit easier to understand when I load this here. Oh, and I do need to pass the camera options into your map init options. So you pass that here. So the camera options. And that'll be my camera options. Great, and then we just need to rebuild it. And as you can see, we're a lot closer to street level now, as we've set that zoom, the initial zoom level to 16. We're also now centered on Washington, D.C. Before we were centered at 00, which is just south of about Ghana. And you can also see the pitch has shifted. So whereas before we were looking straight down on the map, now there's a bit of an angle that you're looking at. Great. If there are any questions about the camera options, please do enter them in the chat. And just this set of camera options is only the initial camera option. So you, as the user moves around the map, they'll switch the camera options as needed. And you as a developer could also listen to certain map events and then respond to them. So you could add a button, say, that says reset, and you go back to the initial camera options. So it's really up to you what kind of experience you want to create for your end user. But all of it is configurable both at initialization time and then also during the course of the map lifecycle. Great. Next, we're going to add a few different markers just to show you how to create annotations for the map. There are a few different ways to add markers to the map. We're going to start with using the annotations approach. Later on, when I walk through the documentation, I can show you how to learn more about the other different approaches and the benefits and drawbacks of each one. So to create annotations, we're going to go back to our code, and we're just going to start with creating a single point annotation. So point annotation. It'll be of type point annotation. In order to do that, we're going to have to start with a coordinate. For now, I'm going to use the same coordinate I used before. So this Washington, D.C. center point coordinate. So it'll be the location coordinate, latitude 38, 29, longitude -77.3. Now, I'm also going to add an image for this point annotation. So to do that, I'm going to go into my assets folder, my application, and you will see you can add in a red marker, and then we'll also use a blue marker. So if you have a local file, you can just drag it and drop it into your assets folder here. You can also download one from the web and add them here as well. But you want to make sure that they are in your assets folder when you're referring to them, so that they're bundled with your application at runtime. So I'll take this point annotation, and I'll set its image as a red marker. So the init, and the image is just a UI image named red marker. And the name, we'll use the same name just for convenience here. Great. And then in order to add your annotation, you'll need to create an annotation manager. And what annotations managers do is they manage all of the annotations on your application so you can manipulate them and adjust them later. So you'll create an annotation manager here, like a point annotation manager. And you'll just add that to the map view by going to map view, annotations, make point annotation manager. And then you'll set your individual point annotation here in the array of annotations that this particular point annotation manager is managing. So we point annotation manager, annotations, and then you'll just pass out the array. For now, just a single annotation of point annotation. Great, and then we'll load the map again. Great, and as you can see, now you have this annotation located actually right on the agricultural grounds of Washington, D.C. So what's nice here is the annotation kind of grows with the zooming in and zooming out. So you can change that as well if you wanted the annotation to always be one particular real life size. You can adjust that here as well. Great.
Hey Patrick, I've got a quick question myself actually, and my background is as a web developer, but I guess my question is there any notion of an SVG overlay for this sort of thing where you could actually like apply a style or a color dynamically, or is for this kind of thing with these annotations, does it always have to be an image?
Yeah, so there are a few different approaches to adding annotations to your map. This particular one's a PNG, but you could use an SVG approach as well. You may need to go through like creating a style layer to maintain that image. So there's usually a little bit more overhead for that, but you are able to use other types of images there, like SVGs.
Awesome. All right, thanks.
Great. And you can also manipulate the annotations as well. So you can add labels if you wanted to. So for example, if we can just customize it. So take the same point annotation, and then here we're going to just set the icon anchor to the bottom. And what that is it's where within the location, where within the coordinate that is passed, the image is anchored to. So here, the default is the center, but we're going to set it to the bottom. And then that'll be helpful because now we're going to add a text field. We're going to label this as Washington, D.C. And then we're going to reload the map. And you'll be able to see that now the label is just below the icon here. So that's, indeed, you can actually see the icon has moved up a little bit because the image anchor has shifted. So that is at the bottom. Right. And you have pretty broad customization potential here. So if you wanted to change the color of this text, or if you wanted to change the font of this text, you could do that. And you can also change the content of that label at runtime if you desire as well. Great. Let's also create a second annotation just so you can see how annotations work in concert. So we'll have a pretty similar approach here. We're just going to create a point annotation number 2. So we point annotation 2. And similarly, we'll create a point annotation. And for this coordinate, we're going to use New York City. So it'll be another CL location coordinate. It'll be add to 40.71, 1 to -74.1. We're also going to add an image. This time we're going to use our blue marker that we've added. just going to force that. And then we're also going to add a label for this one. We'll set the icon to anchor. And what we'll want to do is make sure that our point annotation manager is aware of all of the point annotations. So we'll just add the second point annotation to the annotations array here. So we just do point annotation and then point annotation 2. Great. Great. And we're pretty zoomed in at initialization, so we're going to have to zoom out in order to see this second annotation since it is on New York. So I can keep zooming out. And you can see here, we now have the second point annotation centered on New York City. And as you can see, as you zoom and pan, the icons kind of adjust, so they're always facing the same way towards the user. And here we have them kind of intersecting. You can also have it so that one kind of trumps the others and hides them. So say you wanted to have Washington, DC block out New York, you could adjust that as well. Our default is to show all point annotations, but you can adjust it for your use case, depending on it. Okay. Any additional questions so far? If not, I can walk through the last piece.
All right, sorry. When I show up, it means somebody asked a question. So we have a question from Excel. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. They say, this is super cool. Can this be combined with a toolbox or toolkit in order to solve geospatial questions like an SDM toolbox, for example? I'm not sure what SDM toolbox is, but maybe you know what it is, or maybe Excel can explain what the acronym SDM is.
Yes, I also don't know what it is. The answer to broadly, can this be combined with the geospatial toolbox? Yes, definitely. But if you're able to come on voice and ask your question or explain that SDM, I'm happy to work through that question.
I was gonna ask, well, so
maybe in the chat.
What first came to mind was like turf, and there is like a turf port to for iOS, right? Do you want to maybe talk about what turf is?
Sure, yeah. So turf started as a JavaScript library, but as Chris mentioned, it's now available in Swift, and that allows you to do geospatial processing. So you could do basic or even complex GIS applications, like you could buffer a line, say, or find a point in a polygon, or those kind of operations that someone coming from a GIS background be familiar with. And you can do those within an iOS application with the turf library. So say you wanted to check if this annotation for New York City falls within the polygon of New York State, you could do that kind of operation and then only show polygons that are within New York State, say. Or you could have another application where you ask the user for their location, and then you test if their location is within a boundary, so within the state of Ohio, say, or that kind of operations. Is there a specific kind of operation you're looking to do? Excel?
I don't think we're getting a response. So if you want to jump in,
okay,
you can come back to it if they leave something in the chat. So I'll keep an eye on it. I Googled SDM for GIS and I actually got two different things. So I'm curious if you're talking about a species, what was it? Species distribution model, and or another thing that SDM might mean. So, or shared decision making. So let's see if we can hear back to see which one. They said yes, so I don't know which one. Species distribution model. Okay, so if you're not prepared, I'm definitely not prepared to talk about species distribution models. I'll let Patrick answer if he knows anything about them.
It's not my area of expertise. My instinct would be to say yes, either through Mapbox libraries or turf. There's a lot of power there. There are also additional geospatial libraries you could pull into your application and do that kind of processing and then display it on a Mapbox map, which is a very common use case, both for geospatial operations and then also for other type of operations, is to use a couple different libraries and then treat Mapbox as the visualization layer where everything comes together and your user is able to see that like kind of end operation. I guess one example of that is like actually election statistics is to use another library to do the tabulating of election results and then display those results on a Mapbox map as well. So it's very common to kind of mix and match like you'd come to expect.
Awesome. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, just keep typing in chat. And then also our Discord server is actually open to you if you want to check that out. And that might be a great place to find some other developers who have actually done, gone deeper with lots of other packages on these sorts of things in their real projects. So yeah, back to you, Patrick.
Great. And I actually just have one additional kind of demo to show you all, and that's adding a globe view, which I think is something we've added pretty recently to the Mapbox map that I'm pretty excited about. So as you can see, this right now is the Mercator projection, which is great for kind of a use case of seeing a flat map, but we also have a globe option, which I think is pretty stunning. So I'm going to switch to that projection now. In order to do that, I'm going to change our pitch back to just standard. And then at the end, add this just one line of code. So it'll be here. And we're going to take the map view, go into the map, the style. I'm going to set the projection. And for now, we're going to set it to globe. As you can see right now, the two options are Mercator and globe. Now, if you zoom out, you can see that we're hanging out on a globe that spins, which I think is just very cool. Cool. All right, that's all I have to show you for today for this kind of getting started guide. I'm happy to stick around if anyone has questions as you go through about either what we've worked on so far or questions about Mapbox more generally. Happy to answer.
All right, so this is your last chance, I guess, to ask some questions while we have Patrick. So let us know if there's anything you want answered. And of course, when I'm sharing screen, I don't think I can see the chat. So hopefully, well, let me just not share as large of a screen here. Let me get out of this. Let's see if anyone is asking any last minute questions. No, it doesn't look like we have any. So like I said, if you want to, we're going to post this on YouTube so you can watch it again later. If you want to, go back and take a look at the code. And then I think at the end of this series or this mini series on iOS, we'll probably ask Patrick to publish the code somewhere. So we'll follow up with that. And I'm like, oh, someone posted a question, but nope, that's just Patrick. Okay, so Patrick, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover in the next session?
Sure, yeah. So in the next session, we'd like to cover some more advanced use cases. So a few of them we'd want to see here. So one is if you're starting on the far right, you see elevation. So we are able to add elevation to your map and adjust the pitch. So it looks like you're getting down in the mountains like there. So that is a pretty cool kind of view for your users. It's a very immersive experience. So we'll walk through how to set that up for your users there. The next is this one in the middle here. So this is a topographic map, but we're also going to use this to bring in your own data. So say you had a hiking trail that you wanted to put on this map. We'll show you how to manipulate that data using GeoJSON with Mapbox Studio, and then add that information to your Mapbox map, display it, and style it so that your user can move through it. And then the last item is on the left here. We're going to walk through some additional use cases with some of the Mapbox default styles, and also just how to build your own Mapbox style and kind of manipulate that at runtime. So add different layers, remove them at will. So I hope you'll join us. If there's anything else you want to see, definitely let us know. We're very open to adding other advanced use cases. Happy to dive deep on any of them.
Sure. And also, yeah, so if you have ideas, the best place to get in touch with us is probably the Discord server for right now. So go ahead and jump in there. And then basically, yeah, this one will not be next week. We normally try to do these every Tuesday, but because of the holidays, I think we're going to take a little hiatus and we'll come back to you right in the new year. So last but not least, we have this slide with some additional resources. So be sure to check out the documentation. It's very rich and thorough and lots of great examples. We've also got an iOS demos page that you can check out, and then also connect with us on Twitter and on Discord. So we would love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear what you're working on. Any other parting words, Patrick?
Have fun with it. The SDK is, I think we built it so that it's a few lines of code to get started, and then you have the world of opportunities to customize the map to whatever use case you're looking for. So it's a very powerful SDK, and we'd love to see people doing interesting things that surprise us. So I hope you all go ahead after this seminar, follow these along, and get started and do something really cool. So thanks for joining.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you at the next one. Take care.